Hi, everybody. One word of advice before I get started here, because I've had this happen before. Any of you who has watched my videos, you heard the phone ringing before. I started off really well recording this video or getting started recording the video, and then after a few minutes, my phone rang and I had ringers going off all around me. And unplug your phone if you've got a phone like mine. So anyway, um, today's Friday. And I really want to stick to this plan I have to at least release one video on YouTube a week. And so today, this worked real well into what I was planning on talking about this week, which was the subject matter of yesterday's PowerCast, which was titled A Gospel of Freedom. And freedom was the topic Mike wanted to discuss. And then it just naturally evolved into the discussion of freedom from sin, freedom from the law, which is the law of sin and death, ergo, freedom from sin. So I thought that's great because I wanted to talk about sin this week, mainly because I saw a couple things posted on Facebook. Some of them were shortly after I posted last week's video to Facebook, which was on legalism, the law, and the knowledge of good and evil. Now, I've talked about legalism, the law, and the knowledge of good and evil more than once. And I guess for the sake of some people, because based on feedback we get, some people are still not quite clear on it. We get challenged as to why would we even say, because why would we say that there is no law? It's been abolished. Um, they even ignore the fact that we quote Paul as saying the law was fulfilled and abolished, um, because they want to have some sort of rules. And I understand the feeling or the need to have rules because we grew up in a society full of rules, and we think that's what we need to guide us in our lives. When it comes to spirituality, however, sure, it is good to have rules like stop on red and go on green, and don't try to plug a 240 outlet into a 120 outlet, or 240 device into a 120 outlet, and vice versa. It could be shocking. So there are some good rules to have, but not when it comes to morality. Morality is not governed well by rules. Morality is governed individually on an individual basis, and there's only one true thing that governs morality, and that's love. You will never govern morality with a law or a rule. It just won't work. Um, so, so I, yes, wanted to talk about sin. Mike was talking about freedom yesterday, and he was talking about how we are free from sin. And it's a very good PowerCast. He explains it really, really well, giving biblical validation to what he's saying and everything. And I recommend you listen to it. It's only an hour long, and it's a good show. I want to continue the subject of freedom from sin because some of the posts that I was talking about last week were referring to the fact that we have power over sin. Another post that really just kind of got my goat, and I really love this poster. It's just that the poster said that we just need to accept our depravity, and I do not accept any doctrine that says we are depraved. I refuse to accept that. Depravity only comes when you are being starved of the reality of your own love. That's where depravity comes in. And I can tell you, rules and religion will starve you. It will starve your love. It will suppress your love. It will oppress your love, and it will hide your own love from you, and it'll hide the love of others from you. It'll cause you not even be able to be loved or receive their love or accept their love or even see that they actually love you. So anyway, why do I make these bold statements? Well, In times past, you've heard me talk a lot about legalism, like I said, the knowledge of good and evil. Well, just on a timely, something that was really timely happened yesterday. One of our friends on Facebook posted a link to a guy named Jim Marjoram. Now, Jim Marjoram is in New Zealand, and he's got a blog, and it's a really cool blog on grace, and it's called jmarjoram.blogspot.co.nz for New Zealand. And hopefully I'll remember to post a link to his blog below this video when I'm done. And I'll try to remember to also post a link to yesterday's Powercast too, because it's really good. What I wanted to talk about, I want to read you a few things that he wrote in here, because he titled this blog article from yesterday, which was actually from today, uh, as The Dilemma of Grace. And I'm just going to read some excerpts from it. Um, he starts off in his second paragraph saying, "The viewpoint of license to sin is simply based on not understanding the purpose and power of grace, and isn't the focus of this post. Many, however, see that the embracing of the finished work of Christ, in that we are completely one with God," something else we always say it, at Gospel Revolution, "sin-free," now that's him saying it. This guy doesn't even know about Gospel Revolution. He says we're sin-free, "unconditionally loved, and completely free from any law, etc., as being a denial of the reality of our life here and now. The reality of what Christ did and the new covenant is even far more radical than that. God doesn't even see sin anymore, and only sees us as perfect, loved children. Well, more than that, he sees us, in fact, as lovers now, and simply wants us to enjoy him, living beyond the concepts of right and wrong. The fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil," in parentheses. Interesting. He says God no longer sees, he does, quote unquote, God doesn't even see sin anymore. Well, as in other videos past, I talked about the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. He took away the sin of the world at the cross. The reason God doesn't even see sin anymore is because once something's taken away, you don't see it anymore. It's gone. And then, of course, he talks about you've got to live beyond the concepts of right and wrong, which is the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I've talked about this many times before. You will be robbed. You will miss the mark. You will not understand grace. You will not experience the freedom of grace if you have concepts of the knowledge of good and evil. If you have concepts of right and wrong. Um, when people ask us, it's like, well, if there's no law, then you can just go do anything you want. You can kill people, you can rape, you can do all this stuff. And it's like, no, but, people don't do that whether there's a law or there isn't a law. People do that because love is really messed up in their lives. And a lot of people murder, actually, because they have fear. They're fear-driven people. And they'll murder someone out of their own fear. And I am convinced that fear is the underlying cause of everything. And it comes in very subtle forms of just, stress and anxiety. But the root culprit is always fear, and it comes with many masks. So, what I want to say is, first of all, sin is taken away. You don't have power over sin. Now, as Mike explained, we were set free from sin. The law was abolished. And then, so let's talk about the law and about being set free from sin. Jesus took sin away. That was the sin. It was the sin of the world. And he was the Lamb of God whose blood completely took it away. He didn't take it away just for some people. He wasn't a spot cleaner. He took sin away. Now, sins, the only thing that are called sins, there were no sins from the time Adam fell all the way through until Moses came along. Sins only started happening, plural, people's sins only started happening after the law was given. Those are two distinctly different things. Now, the law was fulfilled and abolished, and Paul says where there is no law, there is no transgression, there is no sin. So we have, on the one hand, we have the sin of the world that was taken away, and on the other hand, we have the law being abolished, and therefore there are no sins. Now, for somebody whose thinking is really controlled by their Christian upbringing, they go, how can that be true? I mean, even I have sinned. I've done things wrong. Well, you may have done things wrong. You may have even done terrible things, but they were just wrong and they were terrible. But they are not sin. It is not. It has no spiritual effect or connotation whatsoever. Sure, we don't want to do things wrong, and yes, we do make mistakes. To the degree you love is to the degree you will have success in any of these areas. And it's not because see, love is something that, first of all, I had to start letting people love me. People loved me and I wouldn't even see that they actually loved me. And I had to start loving myself. And I'll tell you, that is life-changing. I became a completely different person. I valued people more than I ever did before. And I valued myself more than I ever did before. And I treated people differently, and I treated myself differently, and I took better care of myself, yada, 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 yada. So, but we are free from sin, and when we're free from this mentality of the knowledge of good and evil, that's when we actually stop judging. We stop judging ourselves. We stop judging our circumstances in every moment in our life. We stop judging other people and places and things. And they're no longer good or evil to us. And we are literally floated by love. And we can then evaluate the situations and understand them through the eyes and the clear vision of love. So, I like this guy again, that's Jim Marjoram, because he actually quotes somebody named Paul Zahl, last name spelled Z or Z, depending on if you're English, Canadian, or Australian. Z-A-H-L, Americans, Z-A-A-H-L. Paul Zahl. And I'm just going to read a couple things from this rather long two-paragraph quote. Paul Zahl starts out with, grace is love that seeks you out when you have nothing to give in return. Grace is love coming at you that has nothing to do with you. It says grace is irrational in the sense that it has nothing to do with weights and measures. Interesting, right? Because I talk about when we have a knowledge of good and evil, we tend to have a measuring stick. We're constantly sizing ourselves up and other people up, and it creates a terrible inequity between us. And there's no equality, and there's no vision of us all being one. Further on, he says, grace doesn't make demands, it just gives. And I talk a lot about not having any expectations. It goes a long way in life. I just trimmed my mustache, and that was a bit of it. Sorry. Grace doesn't make demands, it just gives. Grace is a divine vulgarity that stands caution on its head. It refuses to play it safe and lay it up. Grace is recklessly generous, uncomfortably promiscuous. It doesn't use sticks, carrots, or time cards. It doesn't keep score. I like how he said, grace is a divine vulgarity that stands caution on its head. See, when I talk about the law being gone and sin has been taken away, there is no sin. That should be a huge relief and open up people's eyes to a whole new world of life. And the funny thing, though, is any kind of pushback I get on that, people find that vulgar. But actually, that's just eyes opening to grace. And it is very vulgar to the person who partakes of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That fruit is death every time. It is poison. It will twist a person's thinking. It will darken their heart. It will make them most legalistic. It will make them to be a religious Pharisee. It will make them miserable. Okay. I just want to. I highlighted a couple other statements that Jim Marjoram said here after he quoted Paul Zoll, and he said after he quotes Paul Zoll uh, and his statements on grace, he says, "With this in mind, we have to come to terms with how it affects our inner life, our daily struggles, and moment by moment realities." I just want to tell you, I remember when I participated in the knowledge of good and evil, I was constantly measuring, sizing up every moment, every occurrence in my life, judging it, whether it was good or evil, whether I was being good or whether I was being bad, or whether others were being good or whether others were being bad, or whether the situation was bad. And it's exhausting. And amazingly, though, it doesn't exhaust us because some of us do it our entire lives. We're just weary. But we can be weary for 80 years. So he says, with this in mind, we have come to terms with how it affects our inner life, our daily struggles, and moment by moment realities. And then further down, he says, the recognition of my unity with love himself will change me. It has and it will. Now I'm going to stop right there. Or no, I won't. It's the only thing that brings change, and it's simple and goes against everything logic tells us. It goes against religion, morality, tradition, and most church doctrines. I would actually say that grace goes against every doctrine in every church I know, and in my 51 years, I've been in a lot of churches. So, I have one more thing here that I may or may not read, and it comes out of the Gospel of John. So, what I want to say here is he's talking at the end there about change. Change is very important to someone who has been influenced by uh, pretty much any religion, because any religion is trying to control behavior. It's trying to control the purity of one's soul. And it doesn't matter whether it's Islam, Buddhism, Judaism, Baha'ism, and Christianity, of course, likes to take a lead role in that a lot. And like I told you, a very scholarly man who works at a seminary in California as a professor, he calls American Christianity a farce. It's anti-gospel, and it's nothing more than therapeutic moralism. And every church is trying to come up with their brand of therapeutic moralism that's more hip, that's more fun, and more revolutionary than what people are getting bored with in other churches, or just feeling the knife of legalism subtly sticking under their program. When people make the statement, power over sin, first of all, they believe that sin still exists. They don't believe in the work of the cross. They don't believe in the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, which was 2,000 years ago in that bloody, gory sacrifice where he lost all of his blood for a reason. So they don't believe that. So they don't believe sin has been taken away. And in their mentality also, here's the other problem with that, is they look at the world they're in through the glasses they have, and it's like, look at this evil world. It's nothing but sin. Now, there's a lot of crap going on. There's still too much crap going on. There's less crap going on prospectively compared to what went on in the Middle Ages, but it's still a lot of crap. We've become more tolerant, more civilized, more accepting of each other. We want to work together more. We're a little tiny bit more loving towards each other. But love has, gotten a toenail hold, not even a full toe, but a toenail hold in the world society now, and it could get better. I really hope it could get better. But it's not sin. This is not a sinful world. This is a world that does not know the good news. It does not know that we and God are one, that we are all one, that we are all the same, that we are all righteous and holy, that there's nothing wrong with us, that we are redeemed, that God is love, and that we are one with God. We are one with love. Love and we are the same. We are not depraved. The only thing that causes us to be depraved is if that knowledge is kept from us. That's when we're depraved. I have found, when people are talking about power over sin, they actually think of physical conditions, anywhere from lusting or pornography addiction or any kind of other addiction, drug, alcohol, whatever, food. And they think, well, because of grace, we have the power over sin. Because of Jesus Christ, or because you believe in Jesus Christ, or because you're born again, which that's every person, um, that you have power over sin. Well, we know that up until the work of the cross, sin had power over us because of Adam. So Jesus didn't reverse that condition. There was no reversal going on in his idea, in his mind. He decided to do much better than a tit for a tat. He didn't give us. He didn't change it from sin having power over us to we having power over sin. We were slaves to sin. He didn't make sin a slave to us. He took sin out of the equation altogether. He took it away. That's what it means by the Lamb who takes away the sin of the world. He took it away. When we take that phony notion that there's sin, just like it's like if you believe Casper the Ghost is real. If you really believe he's real, you're going to look for him around your house. It's like, oh, Casper! You're going to start thinking about things that you don't like in your life or you struggle with in your life as sin. And you know what? Once you do that, you're going to amp up the power of that thing. Let me read you his words again, because the goal of a Christian saying that you have power over sin now because of Jesus Christ. You don't have power over sin. You're not dealing with sin at all because Jesus took it away. And never to be an issue for you ever again. He says the crap of daily life doesn't change, but my responses do. The recognition of my unity with love himself will change me. Love changes. Love changes things. If you're a mean jerk shoving religion down the throats of your children or your husband or your wife or your parents or your neighbors, if you see them the same as you and start loving them and loving yourself, you're going to change. If you're an alcoholic, I have a few friends who are former alcoholics, former addicts. I can tell you love changed them. That's why they're so successful. Sure, they made an effort, but it was all out of love. Their children loved them. They had a new boyfriend or girlfriend that came into their life and loved them. It was a tremendous boost to them. They started actually thinking better about themselves. But you have to let somebody love you. When you're so down, a lot of times you won't even let people love you because you feel you need to reciprocate, but because of your low state, you feel morally bankrupt. When somebody loves you, just let them love you. Um, as you become loved, you will revive, and you will love also. It's not required. Love is not required. Love's already in you. It's just you're having a little trouble getting on your feet and getting it back or getting in touch with it. For a lot of people, they've never been in touch with it their entire lives. But trust me, even you, if that's you, love is there. You don't have any power over sin because there's no sin that you need to have power over. The gospel of grace, the end all of end alls of this wonderful story of grace, is love. It is love. The one thing that will really keep you from that love is judgment. judgment and shame and fear. See, fear is the opposite of love. That's why I believe it was John, but either John or Peter said, perfect love casts out all fear. Damn right, because one's the opposite of the other. When love moves in, fear moves out. If there's fear, you're out of touch with love. And I've always learned, if I am sensing any kind of fear, get to the bottom of it, because it doesn't belong there. It's hindering my access to my own love. Thanks, folks. This went a lot longer than I thought it would go, but I hope it means something to you. Have a good weekend.